Welcome to Paint Along at the Plainfield-Guilford Township Public Library. Today we're going to go step by step through a seasonal landscape painting. I hope you'll join us. To begin, you'll need some simple materials. We have a canvas or some type of painting surface. I have a palette with acrylic paint in primary colors: white, yellow, red, and blue. I have an assortment of brushes, including a filbert that is sort of wide, another filbert that is a smaller width brush. This is a number 6. And then I'll also be using a script, or sometimes it's called a liner brush, and this will be used for trees and tree limbs. Since I'm working in acrylic paint, I have paper towels and some water to rinse. The first part of any painting, we want to focus on our composition. And the composition is how we arrange the various shapes to move the eye around the painting. In this particular one, we want to draw the eye back into this kind of softer area, so that you kind of want to know what's going beyond the trees. It draws you into the woods. And so to do that this time, we have a really strong vertical here that serves as a stop to keep your eye going back in this direction. So we'll simply come in this direction and then back in this area, which will be our focal point. We're going to probably remove a couple of these trees, maybe 3 of them. And then we're going to soften this area by making it more cool and more blue. And that will be a very distinct difference with the warmth that we have in the other areas. So your eye will naturally be drawn back into this cool, softer area. So that's what we're going to focus on today to lead your eye into the painting. I'm going to invite you to take a screenshot of this so that you could do a printout and have it for yourself to paint from. I'm going to begin by making a deep purple. On our color wheel, to get purple, we're going to mix the primary colors of blue and red. So I'm going to do that. And to take it into an even deeper direction towards a black or, again, a very deep neutral, I'm going to add just a little bit of yellow. All right. You'll notice that I toned the canvas this time in a purple. So the reasoning behind that is there's a lot of orange and yellow in our scene today. And again, orange and yellow, purple and blue are opposites on the color wheel. So keeping that in mind, I decided to go with purple so that little specks of that purple are going to shine through and vibrate against that yellow, and I think it will make a really interesting composition. I guess we'll find out. All right, to sketch in, the first thing we want to do is develop our horizon line, and in this case I'm just going to sketch in this line that is in the foreground. The horizon, I guess, would actually be right about here, which is almost midway. Let's see, let's go back, let's go down about 1/3. So we're going to put our horizon line right in here about 1/3 of the way down. So 1, 2, so 3, about 1/3 of the way is going to be like right about there. Doesn't have to be a perfect line, I'm just kind of indicating that there. All right, so another area, now I'm thinking as with these trees as shapes. So there is a shape right here of leaves, and I want to make sure that let's first of all put in these verticals and get those right. So the tree, if this is the halfway point, the tree comes down here about what, just an inch or so up. So I'm just going to indicate there. It doesn't have to be precise, but the base of my tree I want to put in here. And just take that up and off the canvas. I've got another one, and this one has a slight lean to the right. That's all right. I'm probably not going to, I want to make sure the trunks are not at the same level. So this one is up a little higher. We don't have to put in every tree that we see in the photograph, but I am going to indicate some. We've got a couple here. Then we have maybe one or two here. Again, we're working on a smaller canvas. And now these lean in the opposite direction, which is going to kind of open up this area. You can see it's got a little more space there. So there's that. We've got another strong vertical, and I'm going to extend that one down a little bit into the frame, just so it kind of works with these. So we've got a larger tree here, bringing it just down a bit. Okay. Now I'm going to go in and indicate the shapes of this yellow. I see this as a mass that looks like this. See how that is kind of an interesting abstract shape? I've got another one here. Let's go in and do that now. It looks a little bit like a fish, in my opinion. We've got another one down here. Again, more shapes here. There's a lot going on back in this area. Shapes of yellow. Again, keeping in mind negative space. And this should be kind of an interesting abstract shape, really. All right. There are a lot of tree just far off in the distant trees. Just going to indicate some of those smaller ones here. We'll go in later and play with some of that negative space. But at this moment, it's kind of messy, but I like that. All right, and now I'm just going to kind of do some cross hatching. Again, going to work on some negative space a little bit later, but that will help when I'm putting in that sky. Okay, now I want to really look at the values of this particular sketch, and I want to make sure I get some interesting shapes that are the darkest values of our darkest darks. So again, right in here I see some dark areas, and I want to just kind of indicate. And this will highlight this tree, by the way, by darkening that side of the trunk. Okay, putting in this dark, and this dark, and this dark. I'm also going to indicate, again, the bases of these trunks of trees. I want to make sure that this area down here indicates, so that my eye is going to be drawn here. A little bit more of this dark down here in this area. And now to kind of lead our eye, I'm just going to kind of indicate a darker area here. And also I'm going to put the shadows, corners, I'm going to put those in shadow. So here in the foreground, I'm just going to darken the corners. And that will help lead our eye into the center and come into this area. think that's a good beginning to our painting. So now I'm ready to block in shapes. This particular part is very, very simple in that the shapes that we've indicated here, I'm just going to block them in with the basic color that they are. So the sky will be a pale blue. The leaves, the shape of leaves will be a pale yellow. The trees, of course, will remain that vertical dark brown. I will put in some grays for these trees, and of course the foreground of leaves will be a beige, kind of an oatmeal color. So I'm going to do that now without really talking too much about what I'm mixing. Just for time's sake, we're going to kind of fast forward through this part. So that is for the most part blocking in. I've got most of that covered. Now I'm going to go in. I've got a lot of the purple canvas covered now, for the most part. There are areas of it. And so in just a minute, we're gonna go back in with a detail brush and indicate and put in more of that. For my details, I want a smaller brush. Going back to the sky, it is just too muddy looking. And so I need to brighten this up. And I'll do that by adding more white to the blue. I think I really need to right now, before I work on the sky, is go in with a liner brush and work on the trees for a bit, because I really love doing the negative space around those tree limbs with my sky color. And so of course that means that's going to need to be done first. So I've got a liner brush here. I'm going to work on that really deep dark purple that we did earlier. Let me get that. So we're going to work on that, make another set of that dark purple by adding blue and red. Take it in the direction of a black by adding yellow. With this wider brush, I'm going to go in and just indicate those lines. The thicker ones especially. So I've got one here. And I can't see all of it because of those leaves. So I'm just going to indicate areas of the trunk that I actually see. Lots of thin is here. Gonna go up into the top now and do some of the same, indicating limbs. This is really a little too thick. Gonna go in with my liner brush now and work on limbs. This is especially nice because it has some spring to it. So I'm just gonna, again, kind of flip, flip. Especially this area over here where the sky is. I want to get a few of those in that area. Just kind of let the springiness of the brush do the work. A couple areas here where I want there to be some vertical and horizontal. Okay, you can see this is very messy. There are a lot of trees in here. We'll go in there in a bit, do some negative space and clean that up. But right now I'm just going to indicate just a mass of limbs. This is part of the fun of doing an interior forest scene. All right, let's go back in now with that sky color and work around some of those limbs. I feel like this almost needs some yellow in the sky. The blue just isn't reading right, and it might be because of that purple background that I have. So I'm adding some yellow to it. Let's try that and see if that works better. Oh yeah, I think that's it. There we go. I think that has a little more pop. There we go. Get areas of the sky over here. All right, I'm much happier with the sky now. Again, that yellow, touch of yellow, I think it's really just what it needed. Just going to indicate some little specks of that here and there. There's some warmth in here with some orange, and I am going to make sure we put that in there as well. But right now, let's go into the leaves of the trees. And again, I'm going to make some more of that. Doing some of this kind of an orange. A little too much. Let's bring it back to yellow. Now by adding blue, that will tone it down. That's kind of what I'm looking for right there. You can see like that. So I'm going to just indicate some of that back here in the background. That might even be a little too harsh. Let's add a little more blue. Indications of warmth back in here. And now that I laid in that kind of a neutral, I can make it a little bit, use a little bit brighter tone on there and let it pop in just a couple of little places. I don't really need it a lot all over the place, but just a little. Now let's go back in and work on that yellow. Added more yellow, adding a little bit of white. Okay, want to add a little blue just to tone that down. Now, if I, again, yellow and blue make green, I'm going to add a tiny bit of red. Let's just see what we get if we add a little more pull some of that into it. All right. It's kind of a mustard yellow, which I kind of like. So I'm going to just indicate some of that, pull some of that mustard yellow in. I'm not covering all of that tree mass. I am just, as you can see, just adding little hits of this mustard. Especially because it's so toned down, it looks like it really belongs kind of in that background. And I like it a lot. I'm gonna kind of indicate some down here and a little bit down in the ground. Okay, I like the mustard. Now let's go more in the direction of that yellow that we began with. So again, yellow and white. Pull in a little bit of that orange in there just to warm it up. Okay, that's what I'm looking for there. And you can see that the value is much lighter. And that indicates, again, I'm just hitting it here and there. Don't need a whole lot of it. All right, now let's go with something that's more gold. And to do that, we're going to get that yellow and a little red. Tiny bit of white there. Let's go back in there and get more yellow. Yeah, that's kind of what I want something that's much more like, that's the actual tone of those leaves. Now let's put that in there. There we go. wherever I'm seeing, remember that shape of that fish that we began with? Kind of got that going. Putting a little bit here and there. All right, so let's now just duplicate some of that down in the foreground. Okay, and I want to go again with beige, and I've got all of this right now while it's still wet. I'm gonna add a lot more white. Put a little blue in there just to tone it down. There we are. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Let's see what that looks like on the canvas. Yeah, I think it needs to be a little warmer, so I'm going to add a little bit of this orange. There we are. Let's do that. Okay. I'm just going to, again, just really quickly indicate leaves. Working back into that background and just, again, for unity, pulling some of this beige back into that background. Okay, we're on the home stretch. Now we're going to work on the details of this tree. It's just a gray. To get that, we wanted to start with this beautiful deep purple that we had, almost a black. I'm going to add some white. I've got some blue on my brush. Let's work into that, and I'm going to pull some of that green over there into it, just to cool it down a bit. All right, and that looks pretty good. There's a lot of green, as you can see, the moss down here. And this one almost looks like a sycamore, and then it's got some really interesting patterns in the tree trunk. And I'm just going to kind of indicate that's there. I'm going to go back to this one now, pull some of that. Go in with a little bit of that dark tone again and just define it. Taking a small detail brush, just going to come back over here to this tree. Again, just going to define that space. I want to soften and blue this a bit, just to bring my eye back here to it a little bit more. So I'm going to do kind of a pale blue with that sky color that we had. Pull a little blue into it. Needs more white. And just the tiniest hit of yellow. I don't want it to go green, but I want it to be a little bit warmer. A little bit there, about like that. That's what I'm looking for. So let's just see what that looks like to kind of pull that into the background here. I think it needs to be a little more blue, quite honestly. And maybe just a little purple into it. Kind of a periwinkle. Let's try that. It's still a little, yeah, that's more of what I'm looking for. Hit some little areas of blue. Any of these areas that are more purple, I can hit it with a little blue, I think. Again, just to soften it a bit. I'm not sure that I loved having the purple back in there. We'll see. Don't know that I'll do a purple undertone like this again. But again, all things are a learning experience. So I want to soften this a bit, this whole area. It's all just a little harsh. And this is kind of the area that I want your eye to come to. So I'm going to kind of soften it. I'm going to take out some of that yellow. There, I think that actually is better. Okay, we're on the home stretch. Softening some of these other edges here. That really is, I think, what needed to be done on that. Okay, yep. All right, I'm calling it done. I hope you enjoyed it. Come join us again sometime.